All right, welcome to Hops and Homes Virtual Edition. I'm Brady Wilson, mortgage lender at Westcourt Mortgage Group here in Portland, Oregon. And as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host,
Michelle D'Amica, Realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. Thank you guys for joining us. We miss you all. And as you know, we do these Hops and Homes usually monthly in person, but since things have been, the market and the economy have changed quite a bit, we're coming at you once a week now, so you can see our lovely faces and some great information. And just remind you that we're here if you guys need anything. Feel free to reach out, real estate related or not. We have toilet paper, food, whatever. We can do porch drops or drive-bys, virtual showings, all that good stuff. Today we are joined by Phillip Martin from First American. And Phillip, really appreciate you being here today. I just want to say I have had some just wonderfully creative and helpful conversations with Phillip, so I'm really glad that you got to join us and everyone gets to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, total honor and pleasure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do over at First American Title?
Yeah, so thanks again for having me, by the way. And I know for me, I'm a social butterfly, so maybe we can start there. My job really is just to kind of go out and connect with people and in the real estate community, and then hopefully give them a reason to want to do business with First American Title when they get into contract. So I think that kind of manifests itself in a lot of ways, but the easiest way to think about it is I'm the sales rep here, and my responsibility is kind of West Portland / Washington County. Work with an amazing team of escrow officers and different title officers throughout Tri-County to really just help realtors understand the property they're getting into, as the buyer or seller's agent, and then helping them to find more business once they get done with their escrow. So kind of a combination of things. But I think the new normal is a lot of Zoom meetings. So if you look at my calendar, these last couple of weeks, it's just a lot of this, which is different, but it's been good. So, with all the bad, there's definitely some upsides, sure.
Definitely. I find that I'm probably having more meetings than I would if I had
yeah.
person.
Well, it's interesting. I think for me, I look at my role as kind of being a walking billboard for the company. And so I'm trying to be in front of as many people as I can, just kind of reinforce those messages. What are we known for? Why are we great? Why should you do business with us? And the thing with Zoom is, people who may not show up at a meeting normally, there's really no barrier to jumping on a Zoom call and doing this sort of thing. So it actually has helped with just reaching more people and staying in front of people.
Yeah, I think my productivity has actually gone up a little bit. I've got less travel time, to get to appointments with referral partners, clients, what have you. Mm-hmm. And I can actually present some of what I do, which can really kind of get in the nitty gritty and numbers and presentation wise better over a Zoom call than I can even in person sometimes.
Yeah, just the reach. Yeah,
I think we're going to change how we do business a little bit. I think some of this is here to stay.
100%. For me, and that was something I was talking to Michelle about briefly, but when it comes to economics, that's like catnip for me. And I really, Portland, I'm very lucky to work with a group called Greater Portland Inc. that kind of falls under the Department of, oh gosh, what is it? I'm drawing a blank here on the spot, but it's the Department of Economic Development. And so Greater Portland Inc. is kind of the regional house for driving economic activity in Portland. And, I look at those things. I look at real estate. I kind of look at the trends. I look at what's happening. And, in commercial real estate, warehouse space is really kind of the darling of what's out there. And I see if people don't really return to their retail lives the way they did before, I just see more of that stuff getting converted to warehouse and more of that kind of storage. So it'll be an interesting, I think, 24 months to see how things kind of shake out.
Yeah, I think office space might really suffer as well. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of companies are realizing that a lot of their staff can work very productively from home, and they can, get rid of that capital expense. I mean, that's a big expense for a lot of these companies in real estate.
Totally. To me, if you look out 24 months, I just see it being a different ball of wax. You know, I think kind of in between, it's really hard to see those kind of bigger changes when it's like you only go from like one lily pad to another. Usually you don't like jump from one end of the pond to the other, right? But with hindsight, you look back at all those little lily pad jumps and you're like, wow, we made a pretty seismic change. But in the moment, it's kind of hard to see the forest and the trees. So again, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it would be crazy to think that things will go back to exactly how they were.
A lot of positive changes, though.
I think so. It's about driving efficiency. You know, to Brady's point, it's like if you have employees who already pay for a space to live and they've already proven the ability to work remotely, why would you incur the extra cost to bring them into a retail space or to an office space when, you know, you don't need to? So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be just about being more efficient. And really, people want to work remotely. You know, there are those like me, the social butterfly, that want to go out and meet people, but for the kind of 9 to 5 doing their office work, I would much rather be at home. You know, it just is easy.
But the fortunate thing is about our industry is it's imperative to build relationships, and we get to do that still. And I know you get to do that, and I know our clients don't see the behind the scenes, but you are largely behind the scenes working with agents, educating us, providing continuing education, and support for your escrow officers. How are they doing?
You know, good question. So maybe I can give you kind of the state of the union from this side of the fence. You know, what has happened over the last 8 weeks. So I think for us, all of this really started to kind of happen around March 13th. It was a Friday, if I recall correctly. And somebody can correct me, I'm sure, but around that weekend is when the governor's orders came out and things started to kind of go into where they've been, right? So for us, we've reduced, and a lot of this information, by the way, is public. We just had as a company, we had our quarterly earnings report. So some of the stats I'll just put out are in the public space. But we reduced our staff in Tri-County as far as who's in the office by 70%. So no layoffs, no furloughs or anything, knock on wood. We're very fortunate there. But most of our team is working from home. And then we've got a few people in the office. I think for us, it's, you know, health and safety first. And so regardless of how you might feel about, you know, coronavirus and everything else, as a giant corporation, I think we look at how can we keep our staff healthy, 1, and then 2, how can we keep our clients healthy, and 3, how can we continue to transact and not have service levels that falter. And, you know, lots of title companies approach things in different ways. For us, we actually had a plan already in place at a corporate level for this exact situation. In the event of like a global pandemic, what do we do? And that's one of my favorite things about this whole experience. I always say, if you're always prepared, you don't have to get ready. And in this situation, if you have already kind of foreseen this is a possibility and you map out how you're going to handle it if it comes up, when you get there, you just execute. And that's really what we've been able to do, which has been great. So for us, we actually had the biggest April in my office that we've had in the last 12 months. Wow. So, I mean, we're still transacting. People are still closing business. From a nuts and bolts kind of aspect, though, everything we can do digitally, we've moved in that direction. And I think, we're a big company, First American, 50 states, international. A lot of times when you're like the 800-pound gorilla on the supply chain, you don't react very quickly to these situations. And so I have to really give props to leadership and just the way that we've been able to kind of roll out these changes very, very quickly. Where I think maybe for a bigger company dealing with something like this, you would expect more heartache. But really, it's been a very good experience. And I think just because of the health protocols we've had, nobody's been sick, at least in Tri-County. People are still able to work, spirits are high. Obviously, there's challenges, but I see that we're set up to be able to continue to provide great service for a long time. If this continues, it won't affect our business at all.
That's wonderful, because if we didn't have you guys, people couldn't close on their houses.
Yeah, and it's just a quick kind of add-on, real fast. Just some quick numbers. So we had an amazing April, but industry-wide, just to give you some quick stats, in terms of resale volume, which is what we typically do, your residential kind of home purchase or sell, that is definitely way down year over year. So just in kind of a numbers, Q2, we forecasted to Wall Street in our quarterly report that we just had, we forecasted a 45% decline in resale volume and about the same in commercial. So, and that's nationwide. So Portland may be a little bit different, but I think the overall feeling is the second quarter volume wise will be down quite a bit. And I think a lot of that, and Brady, you can probably speak to this as the lender, but a lot of that has to just be driven by, a lack of confidence in job security. And I think that is an issue, when you're going out to buy, if you don't know what's going to be happening. So just nationwide, that's definitely the concern, I think.
Yeah, no question. I mean, we're definitely seeing, some blowback from this uncertainty. I mean, a lot of people don't know if they're going to be employed in 60, 90 days. And so a lot of those people are obviously pumping the brakes at this point. And, we're giving the best advice that we can, because the last thing we want to do is set somebody up to fail. We don't want to move forward if there's any kind of a strong doubt that you might be in a situation where you can't make a mortgage payment. Why would we sign you up for that? So, we're definitely seeing that, and we've seen that follow through, if you will, just with credit tightening. A lot of these lenders out here, score requirements have gotten higher, the debt to income ratios have gotten tighter. So all those things put pressure on credit availability, and that's all driven by the doubt and uncertainty in the job market.
Yeah, I mean, this is just my opinion, and you'll probably like to hear this, but there is a lot of uncertainty, true, but for anybody that needs a home, I mean, there's a simple supply and demand calculation. And if you have the means to buy and there's a home that meets your needs and it's the right price, you should probably still be buying. I understand there's a global pandemic, but I also understand there's not enough houses for how many hands are stretched out to get them. So for anybody out there that's still on the fence, as long as the paycheck is still coming and you feel reasonably certain that you can pay that bill, I would be closing still. I know for a lot of other people, you're getting deals that fall apart when they're finding out like, hey, my job's not here all of a sudden, and I didn't expect that. But for people that aren't there yet, but they're just like not sure what to do, I would still be closing if it was me. I mean, a house is still an amazing investment. For most people, that's going to be their main line to some wealth and to some security in life. So still go out and buy.
Yeah, you're definitely speaking our language. I mean, if you have the means and you can't do it, especially in our market, I mean, we're not going to be seeing any of these price dips that a lot of people, I think, are kind of pipe dreaming out there.
Right.
That we're going to have a big wave of foreclosures, and that's just not going to happen where we are. We came into this with a very healthy market with a heavy bias towards inventory. I mean, we don't have it. We flat out have more buyers than sellers, and there's not capacity. The builders are still catching up. People aren't getting off the fence to sell. The inventory is an issue. And that hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten a little bit worse. And what we keep trying to stress is, I mean, this is a 4 to 5, 6 year investment. This isn't. You're not looking at what you're going to make in the next 90 days to a year. It's
right.
You're buying a home. You have to live somewhere anyway. So it is a good investment. You're putting down other routes besides just your monetary investment. And, you hit on a good fact. I mean, driving the wealth for a lot of people, 83% of the population, their biggest piece of net worth is their home, is their real estate. So, that's obviously an important point to make. And, thank you for letting everybody know. I mean, we're still transacting business. My side, Michelle's side, and you guys that are the facilitators at the end of this transaction. So, I mean, you're doing everything you can to make everybody safe and still get business done at the end of the day. Michelle's, I know she's been busier here lately. She's got more listing appointments. She's got buyers. I still got buyers, let alone the refi side that we're dealing with too. There's a big influx, and also you're dealing with this problem. but we're still lending money,
Yeah.
Not sold. It's not slowed down that much.
Right. That's exactly it. I think the broad sentiment is, lower volume in terms of transactions, again, driven by just some uncertainty. But when you kind of zoom in at kind of a neighborhood level, it's like, let's just say Washington County, or Tri-County in general, people are definitely still transacting. There's still new listings. There's still stuff getting into escrow. My inbox is getting new orders as we're sitting here talking. So, it's definitely happening. And I think one thing to kind of take away from the kind of feeling of uncertainty, this is a different ball of wax from say 08, 09. To your point, we came into this with an amazing economic situation and no fault of our own, having to pump the brakes on that. And it's not a byproduct of, bad lending or a housing bubble or just things being out of balance. And there is a lot of, not to use an overused phrase, but there is a lot of pent-up demand. And I think as people are able to get out of their house, the weather gets better. Traditionally, this is a busy time for real estate anyway. And I think with people having been bottled up for the last 60 days, that kind of pressure is starting to pop a little bit where people want to make things happen. So actually a good time, I think.
Yes, definitely. We're seeing showing activity has gone back up too. Since March 3rd, we saw it kind of decrease. We started out quarter one, it was crazy busy. I'm sure kind of almost like going into spring, and we're starting to see that come back up again. And home ownership is back up from the 90s, and so that's exciting. And I really just want people to know. I know there's some fear, and some people just don't want to do anything, and that's okay. But for those of you that do, we can, and we are very safe and very careful and screen everyone and everything and use all the safety protocols and things like that. So.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, just real quick, Michelle, and you probably have maybe mentioned this on a previous call, but speaking of people's behaviors changing, I support the agents in our area. And so I see a lot of different strategy on how people are handling current events. And it's just amazing to me for all of the listings now, hand sanitizer, gloves, mask, notes, that's kind of the norm. And I think the expectation, even for us, when we have a signing and we're closing escrow, it's like, you cannot be more sanitary. And coronavirus isn't going away, right? So maybe the summer things aren't so bad. Who knows? I'm obviously not a disease expert, but the thinking that we will stop being extra careful and stop being, sanitary and stop having hygiene, like that's not going away. That's going to be the new normal probably for a very long time, would be my guess.
So I have to shower every day?
I think it's been pretty, even from your standpoint, you mentioned how quickly First American, like you said, they're a huge company. They don't just do title insurance. They have many different business lines, and they adapted so quickly. And I think as an industry, we really adapted quickly as well. We've gone, Michelle's doing the virtual showings. She's doing virtual open houses. Those are mainstream now. They've always kind of been available, but now they're mandatory. And they're vetting people a little bit better. Do you really have interest in the property? Now they're not just opening the doors to anybody. So I think if anything, I think they're a little bit more efficient, from that point of view. One question I've got for you is how is it coming along, particularly in Oregon, with the remote online notarization?
So for RON, R-O-N, the kind of Cliff Note version is Oregon doesn't really allow for the final docs to all be signed via DocuSign. However, if you happen to have an all cash transaction, meaning you do not have a mortgage, that is something that can be done strictly through DocuSign. But if there's a loan involved, then there's, as far as Oregon is concerned, there's a couple things that have to have a hand signature. Maybe to the larger point though, and this is a First American protocol, so I can't speak to other title companies. But we've, recognized that nobody wants to drive out of their house and sit down with strangers and be face to face with people and, with everything else. And especially if, you're in your 70s or 80s or you're in bad health, obviously that's an issue, right? So for us, in any transaction, we are doing everything we can to get 99% of it e-signed, and then just leaving the bare minimum to be hand signed. And at that point, often we're just sending a notary out to the buyer or seller's home. Or we've even done like curbside signings where they can come up in their car. We can literally just hand them the docs through the window, watch them sign it. We sign it, notarize it, and they can drive off. So we've done a lot of creative things to limit that need to get in person and sign as much as possible.
Yeah, these are crazy times. It's been some of the things that we're willing to do. But, I think it speaks highly of the professionals that we have in all three walks of our business that, we are adapting to this. We haven't skipped much of a beat in a lot of this stuff. We've kept things going, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think one of the things Michelle was asking about is just kind of words of wisdom or maybe some inspirational thoughts. When I kind of look at this from our business, and I think, okay, the projection is that volume's going to be down and we should plan for that. So how do we continue to be productive and add value when there is uncertainty coming from my side of the fence? And for me, it just comes back to, we should always be looking at ways to add value to the people that we serve. And for me, that starts with my team in the office or working from home. I'm trying to find constantly ways to bring value to their life so they can in turn bring value to their clients. And the same thing with the realtors and the brokerages we serve. It's just, if there's not business to be done, then there's other things that we can be doing that will have a payoff. So I think for us, it's really looking outward at what we can control and what will actually add value to the community. So for us, that's really where we're putting our energy.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we aren't worried. We are staying on top of things. We know what's going on, and we are adapting. And so I just want, to inspire confidence there.
Totally.
The chief economists too are saying, we did a sharp decline due to a global pandemic. It wasn't due to the economy or unemployment or housing. So once we get this rolled out and everyone's starting to get healthy again and they open things back up, we are expecting a fairly quick and strong recovery. And so that's pretty exciting. I have one more thing for you though, Phillip. Some of our viewers are first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we like to kind of educate them on the process and the different parties to the process, being title, and that's a really important step in a real estate transaction. And so if you could just take a minute to kind of like brief overview, what is escrow and title and why is it necessary?
Yeah, happy to. And just by way of a quick kind of background and extended introduction, I've helped personally hundreds of first-time home buyers go through the process. So I've been around real estate for quite a while at this point. Title and escrow, or just kind of commonly the title company, is what most people will say. We really come into the picture when you are officially under contract to either buy or sell. So assuming we're talking about buying, you get pre-approved with Brady, you go looking for houses with Michelle, you find the house, you make an offer accepted, you've got a contract. The very next thing that happens is that goes over to my company or any title company. And at that point, you're in escrow. And from that moment forward, we kind of take over in managing the process through a closing. So a couple of the common things that you would do is you would make your deposit with us. So typically when you buy, you've got an earnest money deposit that would be sent to the title company. We would hang on to the money. We would manage all of the parties. So, your agents, your buyer, your seller, the title company is kind of the one place where everybody gets direction. And then we prep the sell for the kind of ownership. So whatever the property is that's changing hands, we provide clear title, which effectively means that there's no liens. There's, the previous seller doesn't owe money to people that can make an ownership claim against the house. is really just kind of getting everything cleaned up so it's totally clear. You don't have any baggage or strings attached when you take over that property, and somebody can't come back a year later and say, hey, I did work on the property and I was never paid. I'm putting a lien. Like, that's the title company's job, is to prevent that. One thing that I think is a really kind of challenging concept at first is this idea of title insurance. You're almost certainly going to have a title policy when you buy a house, and there's really not a lot to know about it, except that if you want to just understand the basics, when you buy a car, when you go to a lot and you finance, say, a Toyota, and you're driving off the lot, you have to get an insurance policy before you leave the dealership. And that insurance policy stays on the car until you sell it. When you buy a house, you also have to have an insurance policy, but it starts from the day you buy the house back to the day it was built. So it goes backwards. And that policy just protects you against people making claims against the house. So that's just one kind of inside way to think about title insurance. But at the end of the day, your escrow officer is the person that basically referees the whole deal, holds the money, pays the money, and helps you with your actually signing your final documents.
Yeah, and good escrow people are worth their weight in gold. I mean, we can tell you that because we work so closely with the escrow side. After the condition's done, the contract's accepted, it really becomes, like you said, the escrow's kind of the quarterback. And if we can't work with a great quarterback on a transaction, it can be difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise.
Well, I know Michelle had one big final question that's really important to all of us.
Oh, yes. It's Cinco de Mayo. What's everyone eating?
Oh, man. I'll go, well, shoot, I'll jump in there. I will say that I had a burrito earlier today, so I feel like I did my bean, my deal. But I'm trying to eat less carbs and be less of a carb monster. So I've got a bowl of mixed fruit. I don't know if you can see, but some apples, bananas, and oranges. So pretty light eating. Yeah.
Way to get a jump on the burrito, though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you still running?
I'm trying to. So it's been a challenge. Brady, just a side note. So part of my story, I used to be very, very overweight. And these days I stay pretty active and fit and run around. Before coronavirus, I was training for an ultra marathon. That started to hit the brakes, but I'm getting back into it, and the fire is burning again in the belly. But I think my struggle is, I'm still plugged in and working during the day. So when it gets to 5, 6 o'clock, I want to go out there when the weather's nice. Like today is perfect. Mm-hmm. Last couple of days have been raining. So just trying to kind of thread the needle between the weather and time and everything else. But yeah, I'm trying to do less carbs, more running for sure.
Awesome.
Good luck on that. Brady, what are you eating?
We're doing a pork shoulder that's been braised with jalapenos and Mexican spices, chili powder, cumin, all that good stuff. A real slow, tender braise, and we're just going to kind of combine that with some chips. Try to keep the carbs to a minimum, just some chips and beans and what have you. And some fantastic Don Julio 70 tequila. That's going to be on our menu too.
Nice. I'm going to make some chicken tacos. I'll marinate them. I'm going to go to the store after this. Maybe some mojitos.
How are you making them? Are you smoking them?
No, I might grill it. I might smoke it. I've never smoked chicken before. That might be interesting.
Awesome.
Pizza and a giant prime rib, but not chicken. Well,
it'll be a new adventure for you.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to start the process, or just say hi and tell us how you're doing, because seriously, we miss you and we care and we want to know how you're doing. And maybe if you have any great tips for next time that we can share with people about how you guys are staying sane and coping with life, staying in touch with people, we'd love to hear your feedback about that too.
That'd be awesome. Thank you again, Phillip. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. It was awesome.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
Likewise. Good to see you guys. Thanks.
All right. Take care, everybody.